welcome back to the Grace Company YouTube channel, and today we are making some oven mitts, which makes the best gift for Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving time, which means we need to make some gifts for whoever is hosting Thanksgiving, for our friends and for our family, and an oven mitt is super duper easy. We can throw one of these together in 30 minutes or less, and it's something that someone else will use and love and think of you every time they use it. So let's get to making some oven mitts. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel because we have lots of fun quilting content. Plus, we put out a lot of free patterns that go along with our videos, just like the one today. To start making our oven mitt, we're gonna need 4 layers of fabric. Our first layer is gonna be our backing fabric, and I'm just using a regular cotton fabric. Your next layer is gonna be some insulated batting. We're gonna put that right on top. Then we're gonna have a layer of fusible fleece, and then our top fabric, or whatever we want our outside fabric to be. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fuse my top fabric to my fusible fleece. You can get fusible fleece practically anywhere. And make sure when you are fusing your top with that fusible fleece that you're using lots of steam. That's how it's gonna adhere super nice and easy. Perfect, it's beautiful. There's a little bit extra right here, so I'm just gonna cut that piece off, make it easier on me. We've got the lining inside fabric. Then we got a layer of our batting, our insulated batting, and then we have now what we've fused on top. We're gonna baste these all together. If you have basting spray, you can use that. You can use pins. I am going to use just a wee little bit of glue. I have used this for a while and I have not had any problems with it gumming up my needles. I use some school glue for a lot of stuff. There we go. So I'm just going to put a thin layer over the top. I'll put this guy right here. I'm going to repeat that with my other side. And you really don't need that much. This is just going to lightly hold it. And then to dry everything nice and quickly, we're just going to press it. I'll press it to one side. I'll flip it over. I'll press the other side. And because this top layer is a little bit thicker, I may need to press it a little bit longer. It's perfect, and now we are all ready to quilt it. And you can go ahead and quilt this little panel any way you want, but I am going to mark it using my True Cut 6.5 by 24.5 inch square ruler, and they've got these diagonal lines on it that are super nice. So there's a 30-degree line that I love using. So I'll line up that 30-degree line with the bottom of my fabric, and then I can take a heat erasable pen or any kind of marking tool. I can mark that line, and then from here I can do every 2 inches, or sometimes people like 1.5 inches, whatever you would like. All of these lines that I'm drawing are 30 degrees, and they're exactly 2 inches apart, which makes it a lot easier when they're all marked to go and sew it on my little rebel. And then once all the lines are marked in one direction, I'm going to do that in the other direction, but I'm going to line up my 30-degree line. I like to do this one at the top. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and mark everything. And then again, do my 2 inches from that middle line that we just marked. Now all of these lines are marked absolutely perfectly, and I can go ahead and sew them on my little rebel. When doing my normal stitching, I like my stitch length to be longer, but when quilting, I like to move it back down to about right there so I have a longer stitch. And then you'll go and follow the lines that you sewed all the way, going in one direction first, boop, 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 then do the other direction, boop, 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 boop. And I already have a quilted panel right here because I want to show you some little tip and trick when you're sewing your straight lines. So for this panel, if I kept going all the way down in one direction, just like I did right here. You can see that everything is nice and flat. So I started at the top and went down for all of these lines. But for some reason, this line, I decided to start in this direction and go this way. And I want to show you what happened. Do you see how all of this is flat? And then you go right here and it's more wrinkled. That is because I was going in the opposite direction. So when you're quilting, you want to make sure to stay in one direction this entire time. So instead of flipping this way, I should have started right here and kept going down this way. And then I could do the opposite diagonal lines. But this little part right here is because I decided to flip directions. So when you quilt, make sure you're going in one direction. And in the pattern, yes, there is a pattern, and it's free in the description below. You have the oven mitt template as well as all of the sizes of pieces that you need to cut out for this project. But for this guy, I am just going to trace around this oven mitt template. And then I'll do a mirrored one on this side. You can go ahead and cut this out with scissors, or I like using a 28mm rotary cutter just because it goes around those curves super, super easily. This is the My Comfort cutter, and it's ergonomic, so it just keeps your wrist straight and makes it easier to cut. And I like this one for cutting around your curves. So I'm just going to cut out both of these pieces. Perfect. And for the straight line at the bottom, I'll use my ruler. When it comes to these oven mitts, truly quilting it out is the longest part. Now we just got to add some binding at the bottom, and to make our binding, we're taking 2.5-inch strips. We're going to press it in half, and we're going to bind the bottom of this just like we would a regular quilt. After you press your 2.5-inch binding in half, I'm just going to kind of roughly measure out how long these need to be. And it's okay if it is not absolutely perfect in every way. We'll cut it down later, but I'm going to line up my raw edge with my raw edge, and I'm going to sew these together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then from here, I can fold these guys back, and I'm going to fold the binding onto the other side. And my little trick to make sure it is perfect every single time is I like to use a little bit of glue, and I'll put a little bit of glue down, and then if I overlap my binding over my seam by 1/8 inch, it looks perfect on both sides every single time. I'm going to add a little daub of glue. So many people don't like glue basting, and that is okay. If it's not for you, don't do it. But I'm going to continue to do it because it's been working for me. Now I can fold this little piece over my seam by 1/8 inch. It's just a nice little 1/8. And then I can press everything down. And this is nice and basted and ready to go be sewn. Now, when I go to sew these, I'm going to sew it 1/8 inch down from the top of the binding just to get everything. You can do a stitch in the ditch if you would like to, but I kind of like the look of a decorative stitch on the binding. So I'm going to sew 1/8 inch down from that top part of the binding. Then I can go ahead and just chop these little edge pieces off. Perfect. They're already looking so fancy, but we got to make a loop for them, and this loop is going to make sure it's so you can hang up your oven mitt wherever you want. And I'm doing a 2¼ inch by 4 inch piece of fabric. I'm going to create double fold binding, so I'm going to fold both sides into the middle and then fold that middle over. And because this is a tiny piece, I can just press it like that. And then now we can sew 1/8 inch on either side. So we've made our double fold binding, and now we're just going to fold it over to make that little loop. And if you want to make your little loop a little bit stronger, you can put some lightweight fusible interfacing on it before you fold it over and sew it. And that just give it a little bit of sturdiness. So I'm going to baste this loop right on the edge where my pinky would go, except I'm going to do it just a little bit past the binding, not too much, like you can see it's right there. And I'm gonna baste it by just sewing it lightly so that it doesn't move. Perfect. And now we can put our oven mitts right sides together. I like to line up where the binding is first, because if that part is matching, you won't be able to notice if anything else doesn't line up perfectly, but if these ones are a little bit off, you can notice. So those are lined up, and now I'm just gonna make sure that everything is lined up on top of each other. I'll add some clippies. I like using pins when I'm just piecing regularly, and then I like using clips when I have a lot thicker stuff. Now we're ready to sew this guy, and when we sew it, I'm gonna start down here and I'm gonna do a back stitch. Where the loop is, I wanna go over that a couple times because that tends to get pulled on just a little bit more, so we're adding a little bit more strength. I'm gonna go all the way around, and then when I get to this little point right here, I wanna make sure that I bring it down and out like this. So when I go to sew this, I'm gonna start down here on this edge. I'm gonna backstitch a couple times, and then when I go over where the loop is, I wanna backstitch a couple times to give that stability. Then I'll go all the way around. And then when I go to sew this part for, why can't I think of the crevice, the crease, I don't know. I'll start at my 1/4 inch seam allowance like I normally would, but then I will go and taper down to a point, and this point is gonna be 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch down from where that cut piece ended. And then I can taper back up into that 1/4 of an inch, go all the way around, and then backstitch really nicely at the end. And when you go into that little crevice, I like to backstitch just because when you flip that out, there's gonna be some pull to it. And so backstitching on the V going down and then the V going up just makes it just a little bit more stable and sturdy. Then from here, we need to be able to turn this right side out. And so I'm going to cut this little crevice part as close to the stitches as possible without cutting them, and that's why we backstitched a couple times. And then I also like, just to make it sure there's a little bit less bulk, I'll cut some of that extra batting away, and it makes it a little bit easier to flip. Then from here, to finish off your edges, you can either do a zigzag stitch, you can bind it normally like you would a quilt, or you can just leave it, whatever is up to you. And then your last and final step is to close off these raw edges, and you can do that by zigzag stitching, you can add a binding, it is your choice. But after you've done that, you can flip this right side out. And then I like to use just whatever I have around. This is the marking tool I used earlier just to kind of push out those edges, make sure everything's nice. Okay, and then I'll just press it one last time. And then just look how cute this is. Is it speaking to you? It's saying, hello, I would like to take the apple pie out of the oven or the turkey out of the oven. It's just so dang cute. And whenever you make these, you can use just a plain piece of fabric. You can use something fun and pieced, kind of like this guy. This is leftovers from another video that I thought, this would make such a cute oven mitt. I've got to do this. It's just so dang darn cute. And remember, if you want to make this oven mitt for yourself or for gifts for other people, the pattern is in the link below. It is completely free. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you make this, make sure to tag us in it so I can cheer you on and support you. And I will see you next time.